The Sichas Chelek Tezvav, Breishis Hey, Lili Nishbis Reisif Binyamin Ben Reb Menashe Kaltman. This is the fifth Sicha of Parshas Breishis and Chelek Tezvav. This is an absolutely fascinating Rashi Sicha. What is so fascinating about it is that the Rebbe is going to explain the Rashi in which the meaning of the entire pasuk is transformed, literally a 180-degree turn, without deviating at all from the rules of Rashi and from what the pasuk is actually saying. It's the way you look at it and the way you come out on the other end, you're facing in two opposite directions, and everything fits in so perfectly. Let's start inside. In the end of Parshas Breishis, so there's one pasuk that says that the Eibishter saw the Rabbi Adam, that the evil of the people is intensifying. Vayinochem Hashem, the Eibishter regretted that which he did, that he created the world, he created the people. Then the next pasuk says, Vayemer Hashem Emcha Adam. The Eibishter said, I literally will translate it for now, obliterate the people, even though Rashi says something differently, as we'll see. And then the pasuk ends, Ki nichamti ki asisim. What does that mean? In the very end of this Parshas Breishis, Rashi quotes the words Ki nichamti ki asisim when it's mafarish and explains Chashafti malases ala asisim. I thought about what to do about the fact that I made them. So the Rebbe is going to point out that he doesn't say I regret that I made them. He says I thought about what to do. Is in dem nicht verstandig, so there's going to be three questions. Aleph. The word nichamti hot in Pashtus dem badait von charata. Simply, usually the word nichamti means regret. But lechede gedav zijn der pirish apasha von nichamti ki asisim. So seemingly the simple meaning of these words should have been ich hab charata gehat auf dem was ich habe sie gemacht. I regret the fact that I created them. As if he is tied to Targum. Nicht bloß der Targum jenissen was ein pirish is the pa'amam al derech hadrash. Not only Targum Yonason, which often goes off into the more homiletic interpretations, but even Unkelus, which usually remains on the path of Pshat, of simple meaning. And even Targum Unkelus says, I regret the fact that I made them. Is Vikumtes was Rasha, was is Mefares Pshutish al Mikra. Let him down under Pirush. So how is it that Rashi, whose path is that of the simple understanding of the pasuk, how is it that Rashi learns a different Pirush? I thought about what to do about the fact that I created them. That's our first question. Why does Rashi deviate from the simple meaning of the word nichamti, which means regret, and explain something different? I thought about the fact that I created them. Nochmer, additionally, this brings us to our second question. A pasuk frier, on the previous pasuk of Vayinochem Hashem, that the Eibishter regretted, Git Rashi Arisa Klal, Rashi presents a rule. Kol Lashon Nichum Shebemikra. Whenever it uses the term Nichum, like Vayinochem or Nichamti in the pasuk, Lashon Nimlach Malases, it means he rethought what to do, or in other words, regret. And Rashi brings a number of psukim which it talks about the Eibishter and saying, using a word with the sheirish of Nichum, and Rashi concludes Kulam Lashon Machshava Acheres, saying they all mean a new thought. As the Lashon Nichum in Tanakh, that whenever it uses the term Nichum in Tanakh, meint alamol amachshava was is andish, it always means a different thought. Meaning to say, haben die charate von amachfride kemachshava, regretting the previous thought and coming up with something new. So that's a rule that Rashi presents in the previous pasuk. Is leidem klalot eich nichamti gidarb zayin al lashon charata. So according to this rule, nichamti should have meant regret. For vos taichas the Rashi anders. In other words, why does Rashi say differently here? In other words, the question Aleph was in the meaning of the word nichamti. Why does Rashi change the meaning? Question Beis is a contradiction between two Rashis. Rashi in the previous pasuk says that if it says the word nichamti, it means regret. And in this pasuk, Rashi says nichamti means something else. So in Sif Beis, the Rebbe is going to, before we get to the third question, the Rebbe is going to try to suggest an answer and immediately refute the answer and say that our questions remain. Seemingly, we could say, very simple, Rashi doesn't want to use the word regret. Because even a child understands that it's impossible for the Eibishter to have charata, to regret. And the pasuk says, "Lo yishkel v'yechaziv." Hashem is not a person that falsifies, ubenadam v'yisnacham, or a person that regrets, that changes his mind. And therefore he has to say that nichamti means I thought about it, because you can't say I regretted something that I already did by the Eibishter. The Eibishter is not a human being that he does things or says things and then regrets. But the Rebbe immediately refutes this and says this doesn't make any sense. Because also the previous pasuk, where Rashi brings the rule that nichum means regret, is also talking about Hashem. And nevertheless, Rashi says that Vayinacha means that his thought was changed, that he did change his thought from his previous thought. Nochmer, additionally, zwischen the Rayas as Rashi bringt dort in the two. Amongst the Rayas, the proofs that Rashi brings in the previous pasuk that the word nichum means regret, is eich varan the pasuk gufa, this very pasuk that we wanted to use as a proof that the Eibishter cannot regret. Rashi uses that as a proof that nichum means regret. Lo yishkel v'yechaziv ubenadam v'yisnacham. Und doch Taich Rashi miloshen charata, and Rashi over there says that it means regret. That ben adam v'yisnacham, that the Eibishter does not regret. So obviously Rashi is bringing a proof from the pasuk that the Eibishter doesn't regret to the fact that nichum always means regret, including when it's talking about the Eibishter, that the Eibishter does regret. Seemingly that does not bother Rashi. Wie je zegt in van grote met de meebisten. Of me gevindt in de andere psukim, wel Rashi brengt, was Rashi brengt dort, wel wat wie snecham, weil Nacham Hashem al ra, he is regretful about his servants. The Eibishter regretted the bad. Nichamti kim lachti, I regretted the fact that I made Shaul king. Was Agamas and the alle read sich wegen dem Eibishter in all those psukim, it's talking about Hashem von deswegen kulam losh machshava acheres heim. Nevertheless, they all mean to change the previous thought and regret. Hein was soll echt nichamtik yasisim nit mefader sein liten selber klar von losh machshava acheres heim. So why can't Rashi translate nichamti following the same rule that the Eibishter regretted his previous thought? In order 6 and 6 star, the Rebbe does address what that stira would be, and I'm not going to touch upon it now. I'm just going to make the point that this Asif Beis was strengthening question Beis, that even though we know that the Eibishter is not a regretful Eibishter, nevertheless, we see that it is possible to use the term regret on the Eibishter, as Rashi does in the pasuk Vayinachem Hashem, the previous pasuk, as Rashi does in the other psukim that he brought as a proof that nichum means regret. And the question therefore remains: why, when it comes to nichamti, does Rashi not use the translation of regret, and he changes it instead to mean I have to think about it? Now comes question Gimel. Late Pirush Rashi, as nichamti meint chashavti malasis. Now that as long as we stick to this Pirush, that nichamti means I'm thinking about it. It's nit glatik the hemshech kiasisim. The end of the pasuk kiasisim doesn't fit. Was darf late dem Pirush geteilt werden, wenn es in es tam of nichamti. According to the way we're learning it now, kiasisim would be the reason that nichamti ki because asisim. Nichamti chagitrach was to ton. I have to think what to do. Ki al asher weil wie bald asisim chazig gemacht. I have to think about it because I made them. Based on Pashto says the Tam v'Sibah v'Chashavti Malasas b'Shtanen in them was Rabbi Roas Adam. The reason that he has to think of what to do is because they're being bad. Because the Eibusher saw that the evil of the person is intensifying, so he had to say, oh boy, what am I going to do about this? He's thinking about it because he created this person that is bad. Because they're sinning, the Eibusher is considering what to do with them. So the reason that he's thinking is not because he made them, he's thinking because they're sinning. How does asisim, the fact that the Eibusher created mankind, how does that serve as a reason for the fact that the Eibusher is thinking or rethinking what to do? So those are 3 questions. Question 1, why does Rashi not say nichamti as regret? Question 2, how do you reconcile the contradiction between the 2 Rashis? Previously, where Rashi says that nichum always means regret, and here nichum means thinking. And number 3, how do you explain the words kiasisim according to the Rashi that says that nichamti means thinking about it? In Sif Gimel, the Rebbe is going to introduce another question on Rashi, which is going to lead to the answer that is going to help us understand the answers to all of these questions. We'll understand this by understanding a previous teaching of Rashi on the very same pasuk, which also that explanation of Rashi seemingly does not follow the way of Pshat. And this is going to be a question for us. The beginning of the pasuk is Hashem said, I will emche es ha'adam. What does it mean, emche es ha'adam? Zogt Rashi, who afar, this person is afar, is dirt. The human being is made from the dirt. V'aviyol of mayim, I will bring water upon him. V'emcha oisai, and he will dissolve. If you have a sand castle and you pour water over the sand castle, the whole thing is going to disappear. So Rashi is saying that emcha does not mean to erase. Emcha means I will dissolve him in water. Therefore, it says the word michui. There's many other words that in Hebrew that could have been used in Lashon Kodesh, that could have been used for the fact that I will destroy the mankind. Rashi, the pasuk does not use any of those other words. It uses the words emcha. Rashi says it means to dissolve in water. Now the pasuk there updates from emcha is upmekin. The literal translation of emcha means to erase or obliterate. As if like for example, by Amalek it says, you shall obliterate Amalek. That doesn't mean I'm going to dissolve them in water, because we don't find anywhere that the Yidden destroyed Amalek through water. So there it means literally to erase or to obliterate. When it says davar pasha and it's so basic and simple that it means to obliterate, Rashi doesn't say anything. It doesn't require an explanation. You look at the word Amalek, you should erase, you should obliterate the memory of Amalek. So So it's not understood why over here, where it says Hashem said Emches Ha'adam, Rashi has to explain it. In a novel way. Aviyol of Mayim v'Emcha, I will bring upon him water and obliterate him. So the question is, why again here does Rashi change from the literal translation, which would mean obliterate or wipe off the face of the earth, and instead translate Emcha, I'll wash him away, I will get rid of him through water? Is there beer in them? And here is the key answer to this question and ultimately to the other questions as well. In the Hemshech von der Inyan in the Kumendik Sedra, when you read the next stage of this, the next chapter of the story, as it is in the next Sedra, the Eibusher commands Noach to make a teva into which Noach and his sons will go into. Noach's wife and daughters-in-law, the wives of his children, are going to go into. And also some of all of the various different species of the animal kingdom, for the Mabel to be saved from the flood. B'meila. Ken men doch nit lernen as emcha domain fi in pashtus opmecken. We cannot translate that emcha means literally to obliterate. Das heißt vollständig abwischen, entirely wipe out von der Welt off the face of the earth. The human race, the animal kingdom, the crawling creatures, the birds and the heavens, that everything that Eibishter created will be removed, because they weren't wiped off the face of the earth. The Rebbe is telling us that if the Eibishter said emcha, and emcha meant a total obliteration, then there would have been nothing left from the fact that things remained. That there was a teva, and there was noyach, people in there, and animals in there. This must mean that emcha doesn't mean to obliterate. And the proof is in the pudding, in the fact that they weren't obliterated. And in the brackets that Rebbe adds, in truth, you don't have to learn this from the next sedra. In unser sedra gufa, in our sedra, with ein pasuk weiter, with one in the very next pasuk, which is the last pasuk in Parshas Breishis, that it gesagt, v'neach matzah b'nei Hashem. It says that Noach found favor in the eyes of Hashem. So you already know that it can't mean that when Hashem says emche, it means He wants to get rid of, entirely obliterate the human race. Because it wouldn't have included Noach. Because Noach found favor in the eyes of Hashem. So obviously He wouldn't have obliterated Noach. So even before you go to the next parsha, you already know that emcha does not mean a total annihilation of the human race. And even more truthfully, we don't even need the next pasuk as a proof. As we learn this very pasuk, that Hashem said emcha, when you look around the world that you're in right now, and you'll see it's filled with people, it's filled with animals, immediately becomes very clear that when the Eibishter said emcha, the mankind and the animals, the Eibishter did not intend to obliterate the human race and all of the animals. The proof is the fact that they exist, or we exist. This is the nekuda. This is the fundamental point of this sikha. That when the Eibishter says emcha, it cannot mean to obliterate, because the fact that the Eibishter didn't obliterate means that He never said so. Because had He said so, it would have actually been implemented. Therefore, unlike the way it's understood by Amalek, over here when it says emcha, Rashi says it means tzegain, to dissolve, tzelozen in vaser, to evaporate in the water. Not really evaporate, but tzelazin means to cease to exist, to become nothing in water. And now it's not a contradiction. The fact that Noach and whatever was with him in the Teva remained whole. The Gzeira was not to wipe them out entirely, nor michui, to dissolve, specifically through water. Therefore, the creations that went into the water were dissolved and ceased to exist. But those that were in the Teva, they were protected from the water. They were not affected by the Gzeira of Emcha, and they remained whole. So that's the beginning of the pasuk. It can't mean to obliterate mankind, because mankind remained in existence. So therefore it must mean that something else. Rashi says it means to dissolve in water. The decree of the Eibishter was that mankind would be dissolved in water, but only those that were stuck in the water. Those that were saved from the water, those who were protected from the water by the Teva, survived and remained whole. Laid them using this reasoning. That ben ich verstehen, was lernt Rashi as nichamti ki asisim meint nit los charote noch geshavti malasis. following this reasoning, that if the Eibishter says something, it has to be implemented. And if the Eibishter had said Emcha, then Emcha has to happen. The same reasoning we could use with Nichamti. Der Fun was Noach was Riti Bateva and geratet geworden. From the fact that Noach and those and that which was in him in the Teva was saved, is clear that the Eibishter did charata gat of them was asisim. It's clear that the Eibishter did not have charata, did not regret the fact that he created them. Had the Eibishter regretted creation, the Eibishter would have obliterated creation. From the fact that creation still exists, it means that the Eibishter did not regret creation. And therefore Rashi cannot say, his charatati, or ani mischaret, I regret creation, because that can't be, the proof is that creation still exists. And therefore Rashi has to come up with another non-literal translation, chashafti malasos, I thought about what to do. So that answers our first question. Why does Rashi not teach nichamti loshen charata? Very simple now. Rashi can't say it means charata because it's clear from the fact that mankind still exists that the Eibishter did not have charata on in total charata on creation. So that's the answer to the first question. What about our second question? How do you reconcile the contradiction in the two Rashis? In the previous pasuk, Rashi says nichum means charata, and over here Rashi says nichum does not mean charata. That's what the Rebbe is going to touch upon in the next paragraph and the next seif. Das nicht considered zum klar was Rashi sagt für ist gebracht koloschen nichum mikloschen nimlach malases los machshava cheres. This does not contradict the rule that Rashi presented earlier, that whenever it says nichum, it means to rethink. It means to regret and to come up with a new thought. As we're going to see, over here, nichamti is also going to mean nimlach, to regret, or to rethink. It is a new post-regret thought. But the charata does need to have them, but the regret is not about the fact that he created them. This paragraph is very cryptic, but once you learn Sif Daled, it's going to become so beautiful. And just to give you a glimpse, the Rebbe is explaining to us that nichamti over here does mean that the Eibishter regretted something, but it doesn't mean that he regretted creating them. It means he regretted something else. And therefore he says, chashafti malases, I thought about what to do. Because I regret something. I know I'm also being cryptic, but let's learn Sif Daled. The only way the only way to explain it is as the Rebbe builds it up through Sif Daled, and then it'll reorganize the understanding of these psukim in the most beautiful, beautiful way. I still ask. How could you say that from the fact that Noach and everything in the Teva remained whole, Rashi is therefore compelled to say that Nichamti does not mean I regret creating them. Rashi on the previous pasuk, where the pasuk says Hashem regretted creating them, as the Rebbe did regret creating them. And his machshava changed from midas harachmim to midas hadin, and therefore, from the perspective of midas hadin, the judgment of Hashem, there was no more reason for their existence. Or we can present the same question from the other direction. We can ask the question that we have on this pasuk and that pasuk. If the Eibishter truly regretted the creation of mankind, and how did mankind remain in existence? So either you're going to say, how does the previous pasuk say that Hashem regretted creating people if people remained in existence? Or you could say, if the Eibishter regretted their creation, how did they remain in existence? Thus haste, to take these two questions and and rephrase them. In was besteht in Afgemine zwischen dem Posek Nichamti und dem früheren Posek Vayinochem Hashem. What is the difference between the previous Posek, where it says Vayinochem, and our Posek Nichamti? Was dorten ken Rashi einlernen das mit Charote. Over there Rashi could translate that it means regret. Und in dem Posek muss lernen Chashavti Malases, and in this Posek he can't say it means regret, and he has to translate that it means I'm thinking about it. Is there beer in them? Here's the beer. This is the explanation. In the previous pasuk it says Hashem was sad in his heart. This is the emphasis here. In his heart. When das lernt uns, das redt nicht der pasuk wegen dem ewigsten Gzeira, was er rausgekommen in Dibur. This teaches us that this is not talking about a decree that was brought down in the words of Hashem. Norwegens ein Machshava, this is the Eibishter still in his own thought process. Was hat getracht, kiviyachol beinei levin atzmei, which is thinking to himself, so to speak. Und wie Rashi is dort at edlich amal medayik und madgish. As Rashi over there specifies and emphasizes numerous times the lashon machshava, the word, the expression of thought. Either nebcha machshavta, he changed his thought, or Allah b'machshava lefonav, it arose in his thought, or machshava achera, saying this is a new thought. Either way, we're talking about the Eibishter's thought process before it was brought down into the realm of speech. And since the regret that the Eibishter had is still only in the realm of thought, we cannot ask why was it not applied into reality. Because since it was only in the Eibishter's thought process and it did not come down into the Eibishter's speech, it was not necessary for it to be implemented in reality. As if to say, there's something that I think, and then I say it, and then it goes to Maisa. Only after Dibur does it go to Maisa. So in a human being, and as the way that Rabbi explains it, the same thing applies to the Eibishter. Something that is in the realm of the Eibishter's machshav, the Eibishter's thought process, does not have to be implemented. It's just a thought. Then when the Eibishter says it out, then it means that it has to happen in reality. So the first pasuk, Vayinochem Hashem, the Eibishter in his heart or in his mind, regretted the entire creation. Vayinochem Hashem al asher asa. But it did not have to become a reality because it was only in machshava. Then we come to our pasuk where it says the Eibishter said, the Eibishter spoke, but does metagzeda dur chamira, which means a decree that came down into speech. And if the Eibishter decrees something, it must happen, it must come down into reality. The Dibur kemen it zogen as the Dibur emchad gemeint up zwischen den Nivraim. So now we can say that once Hashem spoke, said the words emche, he means to wipe out creation entirely, because it didn't happen, as we said in the previous Sif. And since it's Vayomer, we can't say, oh, he just said it and it didn't happen. Once he says it, it happens. So from the fact that it didn't happen, we know that he didn't say it. So when he says emcha, it must mean that he's not going to destroy everything. Therefore, nichamti cannot mean I regret creation, because now it's the things the Eibishter is saying. And if the Eibishter had said I regret creation, then creation would cease to exist. And since creation still does exist, obviously he didn't regret creation, and therefore Rashi says it means I have to think about what to do. Because I see what's going on, I have to tweak the situation or fix the situation. I have to think about it. Based on this, so before we get to Sifei, we answered question number one, that he can't say Nichamti means Charata, because we see that he did not destroy the world. It's not a stira between this pasuk and the previous pasuk, because the previous pasuk is talking about the machshava of the Eibishter, and over there charata is possible. It's possible to say charata because in the machshava it does not need implementation. In our pasuk it's talking about vayomer, and therefore we can't say it means charata because since that charata wasn't implemented, obviously it does not mean charata, and therefore Rashi says chashavti malases. We still have a third question about the words ki asisim, and really we didn't yet explain how we could use the term nichamti, and we said in the end of Sif Gimel that nichamti means nimlach. That we didn't get to yet. That's what's going to be explained right now in Sif Hey. How does the word nichamti fit into the pasuk? Should have said chashavti. So first the Rebbe is going to make an observation. As in the Eibishter Amida Emches Adam, when the Eibishter said, I will dissolve mankind, hat sich aufgetan auf Erleichterung, this lightened the situation in comparison to the previous thought. In the previous thought of the Eibishter, there was a regret on the entire creation. That would mean to stop the existence of the entire human race and all the animals. Later the Eibishter says, I will I will dissolve mankind. Which meant to dissolve through water. And because of that, this gzeda will not apply to Noach and his family. So this is a much lighter decree. The first decree, which wasn't actually a decree, but it was just in the thought of the Eibishter, was to destroy everything. And then the Eibishter changed that and said, I will save Noach and his family, and that way mankind will remain in existence. What brought this change to the lighter decree von Emcha? When previously there was a Olav Machshava, the Eibishter thought about destroying everything. Versteht man es besium apasuk ki vayel nichamti ki asisim. Because I thought about, because I made them. Ich habe sich erklärt, was zu tun mit sie, zu lieb dem, was ich habe sie beschaffen. I'm considering what to do about them because I created them. Das heißt, wie bald als ich habe sie beschaffen. Sie seine Meise Yodesh HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because I created them. They are the handiwork of the Eibishter. Darf ich gefinnen a Weg aufzuhalten their kiyum. I must find a way to sustain their existence. And therefore I'm only going to dissolve them in water. But those that are not in water are going to survive. So that way I do not destroy the entire world, because the world is precious to me, because it's something that I made and I created. So this answers the question of ki asisim. Chashavti malasos, I'm thinking what to do, not I'm thinking to destroy them. I'm thinking to not destroy them. Why? Ki asisim, because I made them, because they're precious to me. And leidem, and we'll read Uis after in the next paragraph, just to summarize, but we got to go into the next paragraph. Leidem is ich move on as the tides from Rashi nichamti chashavti malasos is nit in stire zum klal as koloshim nichum shmeit mechshava acheres. Now we understand that the word nichamti, which Rashi does not say regret, but it means thinking about it, is not a contradiction to the fact that nichum means a new thought. Also here nichamti means charata, regret. Aber the charata is nit of them was asisim. But the regret is not about the fact that I created them. I'm not saying nichamti ki asisim, I regret the fact that I created them. Not after friedike machshava. The regret is on the previous thought, which included the entire creation without exception. And that's what I regret. Before I thought to myself, Ayinochem Hashem, Eibishter said, I'm regretting the existence of the entire creation, which would lead to the destruction of the entire creation. And Ki Nichamti, says Rashi, I now regret that thought. I regret the thought to destroy everybody. Why? Ki Asisim, because I created them. They're precious to me. I don't want to destroy all my handiwork. and therefore I have to think about what to do about what they've done wrong, and therefore emche, I will dissolve them, so that way it'll punish them and get rid of most of the evil, but those that are not in water will survive, and that way the world will continue to exist because the world is precious to me. So you understand what happened over here. First, the Eibishter had a machshava. The machshava was total annihilation, total obliteration. But because it's still a machshava, the Eibishter, it doesn't compel reality. Then the Eibishter says emcha. At this point, once the Eibishter is speaking, it must be something that's going to happen. We know what happened. We're after the story. We know that mankind survived and the world survived. So clearly the Eibishter did not plan to destroy the world when he said emcha. So therefore Rashi says lashon michui. And then Rashi, in Nichamti case, Rashi explains what happened. I regretted that initial machshava to destroy the whole world, because I love the work of my hands. I want the world to continue to exist, but I have to fix the situation. So chashavti malases, I thought about it, and I came up with a brilliant plan. I'll get rid of most of mankind of that time, but I will save some of mankind and some of the animals and some of the world, so that way the world could continue to exist, because that's ultimately what the Eibishter wants. And with this, we answered all our questions, and we understand how precious we are to the Eibishter. The Eibishter doesn't want to destroy us. He only wants us to be the best us that we could be. In Sivav and in the Zion, Sivav and Zion, the Rebbe is going to bring two very, very practical lessons that we could take from this understanding of Rashi, the way the Rebbe explained it, of these psukim. The Pirush Rashi of Kinichamti is v'yeder inyan and teirem elosh neira eich hayrav. The same, this explanation of Rashi and the words Kinichamti is as every element in Teira, which Teira is always a lesson. This also teaches us a lesson in our avodah. As we explained, Rashi cannot translate that Nichamti means that the Eibishter regretted the creation of all of his creations. As he explained earlier, because since it says the Eibishter said it, once Hashem says it, it's a gzeira that it has to be implemented into reality, and it can't, and therefore Rashi can't teach that it means charata and asiya. And this is a lesson to what extent one must be careful in his speech. But we bald as tzaddikim, since tzaddikim was the meten alle Eden, which in this context tzaddikim means every yid, that your nation are all righteous, so everyone is a tzaddik, and tzaddikim are doimim lebeiram, are similar to their creator. Just like the Eibishter's words must be implemented into reality, so too when a Yid speaks, it must have an impact. Therefore, we have to be so careful not to say out a negative word about another person, but the dibur von Yidden can shatten, because when one Yid speaks negatively about another Yid, it could hurt the other person. If you think about the other person's bad, you are transgressing a very severe transgression. But it won't hurt the other person so much. It's a terrible thing to do, to think negatively about another person, but it won't necessarily affect the other person. But if you speak it out, then the other person can suffer from it. Everyone knows the famous story in Hayom Yom, where someone said to the other person, I'm going to tear you to pieces like as if you were a fish. And the Alter Rebbe showed the Talmidim how in Shamayim, person A was shredding the other person as if it was a fish, as if he was a fish. So we had a glimpse of the words of a person actually having an impact in reality, at least in spiritual reality. And we see from this, and what the Rebbe is saying over here, that when a Yid says something, it actually it actually has an effect. And I will explain this in the next page. How the words of a person actually have an impact on reality. The bit is verstandig. Der Barmer Zad Loshen Tlisoi Kotil Tlisoi. This will also help us understand what Chazal tell us that Lashon Hara kills 3 people. As Lashon Hara bringt Unglück auf alle drei, that speaking evil could bring a tragedy onto all 3 parties. Niet blaze af der Zähler und der Herrer, not just the teller and the listener, but also the person about whom it's being spoken. Seemingly one can ask, die beide, these two, there was red lashon hara and there was het lashon hara, the person speaking, saying it, or the person listening to it, they did something wrong, and therefore they're gonna get punished for it. They're gonna suffer. Aber was ist schuldig der Dritte? Was soll leiden? The third person, he did something wrong or he said something wrong, but he didn't. It was between him and the Eibishter. The fact that 2 people are talking about him, why should he suffer? Because 2 people are speaking about him. Is there beer in them? And the explanation is the tchune und uftu von dibur, the nature, and therefore the impact of speech is that it actually brings something out from the concealed state into a revealed state. When the Rebbe calls Mama net, therefore, as long as it's not being spoken about, I feel it does emes. Even if it's true that this person is done or is not a good person, steht das noch in an Efen von Hell, but it remains concealed. When the Eibishter extends himself before he becomes angry, waits till the person does tshuva. So it's something that is a potential negative energy here. But as long as it wasn't spoken about, so it's still behind the scenes, and the Eibishter could wait. The person could do tshuva, and then it'll never actually impact the person. But if it's spoken about, and it's brought into the revealed sphere in the world of speech, this could bring down a negative decree from above, which can actually damage or hurt the person. So that's why lashon tlisoi is katal tlisoi. That's why when you speak negatively about someone, you're actually affecting that person as well. And that's why we have to be so careful that whenever there's a vayomer, whenever we say something, it shouldn't be something negative about another person. That's the first lesson that we learned, the power of speech. That once the Eibishter says vayomer Hashem emcha, if emcha had meant to obliterate, it would have happened. So when we speak, when we say something, it can actually impact reality just because we said it. Then there's another lesson that we could learn from Rashi. The reason why the Eibishter's regret for creation did not actually come out with dibur is because the Eibishter thought about it. What am I going to do about this? Das heißt, nicht bloß was die Gseide ist nicht gekommen mit dibur, denn auch viele b'machshava ist nicht kein achlote zum Arbeitsein Dimension. The way the Rabbi says it over here is chashavti malasais is in the past. Abish is saying now, emcha, I'm going to only dissolve them and not obliterate them. Why? Because when I had the machshava was a regret about the fact that I created them, but I did not have an actual thought to destroy them. I was thinking about what to do. So I did regret the fact that I created them, but I did not decide, even the machshava, I didn't decide to actually destroy them. Very important point. Not only did I not say out the decree to destroy them, then I feel even in the thought of the Eibishter, there was no decision to ma'abed and dimension to destroy mankind. It was only a thought of regret for the past, without a decision of what to do. And since we were talking about the handiwork of the Eibishter, the Eibishter changed the thought that it should be a positive thought as Noach that Noach and and whatever was with him in the Teva should survive. And this too is a lesson for everyone. Even when you see another on another yid, that his evil, his wickedness, is intensifying, and the inclination of the person's thoughts is only bad. So you think to yourself, this is a bad person. That when you know that every yid is a sapling of his planting, the handiwork of the Eibishter, one should not carry out a decision, a resolution, even in your thought. He has to be judged favorably. There's two things you could say. You could think to yourself, this person's a bad person. Or you could say, this person must be punished. So even if you notice that the person's a bad person, to even in your thought to say, this person must be punished, one shouldn't do that. As we see by the Eibishter, that the Eibishter didn't decide to destroy mankind, even in his thought. He regretted what he did. He felt bad about the fact that he created them because they were wicked. But he didn't yet decide to destroy them. Instead, he said, let me think about this. And he came up with a plan that could save mankind while destroying the actual evil. Eibishter knows what's going on the inside of the person. The Eibishter doesn't make mistakes. The Eibishter saw that the people were bad. It was obviously true. Nevertheless, the Eibishter refrained from carrying out, even in his thought process, a final resolution. Certainly a human being that says, which is very possible, but very capable of making a mistake. Person shouldn't stand strong, shouldn't be firm, and come out and or conclude rather with a negative opinion on the person. It's very possible, as is the that is the reality, that the truth is not as it seems. A person should judge the entire person favorably. And Chazal explain, Kol ha'adam, the entire person. You don't know the whole picture. You only know some of the picture. So the human being has a limited vision of reality. So Madach, the Eibishter didn't come to a conclusion. Certainly we should not come to a conclusion. And that's the second lesson. That even if you see someone doing something wrong, or see someone, you should not decide for them what has to happen to them, because you don't know you don't know the whole story. And even the Eibishter, who does know the whole story, did not come to that resolution. So what we have over here is an incredible 180-degree turn of the word ki nichamti. Nichamti ki asisim doesn't mean, as a person would understand by looking even in the Rashi, without understanding the Sikha, that it means I have to think about, basically means a regret, or close to regret, the fact that I created them. No, I'm regretting my initial thought of destroying them, and I have to come up with a new idea that'll save mankind. Why ki asisim? Because I created them, I love them, it's my handiwork. And that's the lesson to us. Number one, never speak negatively about another yid. And number two, even when you're thinking about another yid, never finalize a negative resolution, even in your thought, because you might not have the entire picture.